The desert night is never truly silent. When the wind fades and the stars rise above endless dunes, the world becomes a place of stories. For thousands of years, travelers gathered beside fires and told tales of creatures that lived beyond the edge of the known world, creatures that slept beneath oceans, creatures that moved inside mountains, creatures that ruled the darkness before humanity understood the sky. Today, when we think of mythological monsters, one creature almost always comes to mind. The dragon, a beast of fire and wings, a creature feared across medieval Europe, revered across ancient China, carved into temples, painted on scrolls, whispered about in countless legends. Across cultures separated by oceans and centuries, dragons appear again and again. But a deeper question waits behind the legend. Were dragons truly the first monsters humanity imagined? Or were they the descendants of something older, something far more ancient? Long before dragons filled medieval stories, before knights hunted them, before emperors carved them into palace gates, humanity was already imagining creatures that ruled chaos itself. To find them, we must travel back, not hundreds of years, but thousands. Back to the first cities, back to the first myths ever written, back to the moment when humanity first tried to understand a dangerous and mysterious world. And in that distant past, we find monsters older than dragons, forgotten creatures born in the earliest stories of civilization, creatures of chaos, creatures of the deep, creatures that once ruled the imagination of the ancient world. More than 5,000 years ago, the first cities began to rise along the banks of great rivers. In Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and the Euphrates, humanity built the earliest urban civilizations. Here, in places like Uruk and Babylon, people began to write. At first, writing was simple: lists, trade records, taxes. But slowly, those clay tablets began to carry something else: stories. Stories of kings, stories of gods, and stories of monsters. These stories reveal something fascinating. The first monsters imagined by humanity were not dragons. They were something older, more primal, creatures born from chaos itself. In the ancient Mesopotamian imagination, the universe did not begin with peace. It began with a battle, a cosmic struggle between order and chaos. And the embodiment of chaos was not a dragon with wings and fire. It was a vast and terrifying ocean monster, a creature older than the world. Her name was Tiamat. In the ancient Babylonian creation story known as the Enuma Elish, the universe begins with water. Not gentle rivers, not calm seas, but a dark, endless ocean of chaos. From these waters, the first gods were born. But among them existed a force far older, a primordial being who represented the wild and unpredictable power of nature itself. Tiamat. She was the mother of monsters, a vast creature often described as a serpent or sea dragon. Her body was the ocean, her voice was the storm, her anger could shake the heavens. In the myth, the younger gods grow loud and restless, disturbing the ancient order. Tiamat becomes furious. From the chaos of the sea, she creates an army of monsters. Serpents with deadly venom, beasts with enormous fangs, creatures never seen before or since. These monsters are sent to destroy the rebellious gods. The universe itself becomes a battlefield. Finally, a young storm god named Marduk rises to confront her. Their battle is not simply a fight between two beings. It is the struggle between chaos and order. According to the story, Marduk defeats Tiamat in a violent cosmic battle. He splits her enormous body in two. From one half, he creates the heavens. From the other half, he forms the earth. In other words, the world itself is built from the body of a monster. Long before dragons filled medieval legends, humanity had already imagined a creature far more ancient, a chaos serpent whose body became the universe. Another monster appears in one of the oldest stories ever written, the Epic of Gilgamesh. This epic poem tells the story of Gilgamesh, the legendary king of the city of Uruk, a powerful warrior, two-thirds divine, and destined to become one of the first great heroes of human storytelling. But every hero needs a monster, and in Gilgamesh's story, that monster arrives from the sky. The goddess Ishtar, angered by Gilgamesh, decides to punish him. She asks the gods to unleash a terrible creature upon the earth, the bull of heaven. This is no ordinary animal. It is a divine beast capable of destroying entire cities. When it descends to the earth, the ground cracks beneath its hooves. Its breath creates massive pits in the land. Hundreds of warriors fall into the collapsing earth. Chaos spreads across the city. Gilgamesh and his companion Enkidu face the monster together. The battle is brutal, but eventually the heroes defeat the bull of heaven. The victory makes Gilgamesh legendary, yet it also angers the gods, and this triumph will lead to terrible consequences. In ancient myths, monsters were never simply enemies. They were instruments of divine power, and defeating them often carried a terrible cost. Thousands of kilometers from Mesopotamia, along the fertile banks of the Nile, another civilization was imagining its own terrifying creatures. Ancient Egypt was a land obsessed with the afterlife. For the Egyptians, death was not an end, it was a journey, a passage through a mysterious realm filled with trials, judges, and divine forces. To enter eternal life, every soul had to face a final judgment. In the Hall of Truth, the heart of the deceased would be weighed against the feather of Ma'at, the symbol of truth and cosmic balance. If the heart was light, the soul could pass into paradise. But if the heart was heavy with wrongdoing, something waited nearby, a creature known as Ammit. Ammit was not worshipped like the gods. She was feared. Her body was a terrifying fusion of animals: the head of a crocodile, the front legs of a lion, the back of a hippopotamus, three of the most dangerous animals known to ancient Egyptians combined into a single monstrous being. If a soul failed judgment, Ammit would devour it, not punish it, not imprison it, but erase it completely. In Egyptian belief, this was the worst fate imaginable. To be consumed by Ammit meant your soul would cease to exist. No afterlife, no rebirth, nothing. Here, monsters served a powerful purpose. They were not just creatures of fear, they were guardians of moral order. Not all ancient monsters were destroyers. Some were guardians, protectors of sacred places and hidden knowledge. One of the most famous examples still sits silently in the Egyptian desert, the Great Sphinx of Giza. With the body of a lion and the head of a human, the Sphinx symbolized strength and wisdom combined. For thousands of years, it has watched over the pyramids, silent, patient, unmoving. But the Sphinx was not only an Egyptian symbol. Centuries later, the Greeks adopted the creature into their own mythology. In Greek stories, the Sphinx became something far more dangerous, a monster that terrorized the city of Thebes. Travelers approaching the city were forced to answer a riddle. What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs at noon, and 3 legs in the evening? Those who failed to answer correctly were killed. Only one man solved the riddle: Oedipus. When the riddle was answered, the Sphinx destroyed itself. The monster had been defeated not by strength, but by knowledge. Across ancient cultures, one creature appears again and again: the serpent. Long before dragons were imagined with wings and fire, serpents already ruled the mythology of the world. In ancient Egypt, a monstrous serpent named Apep attacked the sun every night. As the sun god Ra traveled through the underworld, Apep attempted to swallow the light and plunge the world into eternal darkness. Priests performed rituals to help Ra defeat the serpent and ensure the sunrise. Far to the north, in Norse mythology, another enormous serpent circled the entire world: Jörmungandr, the world serpent. So massive that it wrapped around the oceans of the earth and held its own tail in its mouth. According to prophecy, one day it would rise from the sea, and when it did, the final battle of the gods would begin. Even in ancient symbols, the serpent appeared. The Ouroboros, a serpent biting its own tail, a symbol of eternity, life feeding into death, death giving birth to life again. These serpents were more than monsters. They represented the mysterious forces of nature itself, chaos, cycles, destruction, renewal, and slowly across centuries of storytelling. These serpents began to change. They grew larger, more powerful, more terrifying, until eventually they became something new, something that would dominate the myths of the next 1,000 years. The dragon. Greek mythology expanded the world of monsters like no civilization before it. Here, monsters were not simply symbols, they were characters, creatures with names, histories, and terrifying abilities. One of the most powerful was Typhon, a gigantic storm monster described as the father of many terrible creatures. His body reached the stars. Hundreds of serpent heads grew from his shoulders. His voice was the sound of roaring storms. According to myth, Typhon challenged the king of the gods himself, Zeus. The battle shook the entire world. Lightning clashed with fire. Mountains shattered. In the end, Zeus defeated Typhon and buried him beneath Mount Etna. But Typhon's children continued to haunt Greek legends. The Hydra, a serpent with many heads. Each time one head was cut off, two more grew in its place. The Chimera, a horrifying fusion of lion, goat, and serpent that breathed fire across the land. These creatures became the ultimate challenge for Greek heroes, for Hercules, for Perseus, for Bellerophon. In Greek storytelling, monsters existed for a reason. They tested the courage of heroes, and through these battles, heroes proved their worth. By the time medieval stories began to spread across Europe, the image of the dragon had finally emerged. But the dragon was not created from nothing. It was built from thousands of years of older myths, from chaos serpents like Tiamat, from cosmic snakes like Jörmungandr, from monstrous hybrids like the Chimera. In Europe, dragons became symbols of destruction. They burned villages, guarded treasure, and terrorized kingdoms. But in East Asia, dragons were something very different. In China, dragons were divine creatures, symbols of power, wisdom, and the forces of nature. Chinese dragons controlled rain and rivers. They brought prosperity and balance. The same creature that symbolized chaos in one culture represented harmony in another. Yet both traditions shared the same ancient roots: the serpent, the oldest monster humanity ever imagined. Some historians believe ancient monsters may have been inspired by something real: fossils. Across deserts and mountains, people sometimes discovered enormous bones buried in the earth, gigantic skulls, massive ribs, teeth far larger than any living animal. Without modern science, these discoveries must have seemed mysterious, even terrifying. What creature could possibly leave behind such remains? Some scholars believe dinosaur fossils may have inspired dragon legends. In ancient China, people even called fossils dragon bones. They were ground into powder and used in traditional medicine. It is possible that the monsters of mythology were not purely imaginary. They may have been humanity's attempt to explain ancient discoveries long before the science of paleontology existed. Monsters have always revealed something important about the people who imagined them. They reflect our fears, our questions, our attempts to understand a dangerous and mysterious world. To ancient humans, the world was filled with forces beyond control. Storms could destroy cities, floods could erase entire civilizations, disease could appear without warning. In such a world, monsters gave shape to chaos. They turned fear into stories, stories into myths, and myths into the foundation of culture. From the chaos serpent Tiamat, to the devourer Ammit, to the world serpent Jörmungandr, humanity imagined countless creatures long before the dragon appeared. And yet the dragon survived. It became the ultimate monster, a creature that carried echoes of every myth that came before it. But behind every dragon, there is an older story, a forgotten monster, a shadow from the earliest days of civilization, the monsters before dragons, and perhaps the first monsters humanity ever imagined.